Welcome to Foundation. Today we're talking to Anthony Casalena, who is one of my favorite product builders and the CEO and founder of Squarespace. Let's chat with him. So I love to start at the very beginning, get back to your roots. Where did you grow up in New York or?
No. Grew up in Maryland, actually, northern Maryland.
What part of Maryland? What town?
So it's very small. The area is like Hereford area, Hereford zone. That would be like the school zone. The place I was in is Moncton.
Okay. I lived in Germantown for a very, very small stint.
Yeah. I mean, I like to say I grew up in the woods. It was like, it's rural, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a cornfield a couple hundred feet away.
So
it's like,
how'd you get into computers? Like, at what point did technology interest you?
So that's a good segue because perhaps the boringness of the surroundings means that, you know, having a computer at home is by far the most interesting way kind of to spend your time. I mean, I got into computers because my dad worked at technology companies and he always had like, you know, a computer at home and I would play with it and break it and, you know, piss him off and things like that. And they eventually ended up, you know, getting me my own computer. And I remember, you know, dialing into AOL and that becoming my first experiences with the internet and kind of going from there.
Did you get into chat rooms and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did too.
Actually, one of the big drivers for me learning programming was to program scripts for IRC clients. So I was on a network called EFNet, and I remember it being this really interesting thing because your age doesn't matter, right? I mean, I was like 15, 16, and you interact with these people who are doing really interesting things with computers and the internet. You just, it's okay to be a kid and intellectually engage with that. And I remember that was how I learned programming and learned about security stuff and watched Napster be born and things like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you eventually, were you all self-taught or did you go to school for CS or?
I would say I'm self-taught. I ended up going to school for computer science because everyone kind of was like, oh, you're so good at this. Isn't that what you're going to do?
Right.
And I'm a kid. And I'm like, okay, that seems like a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And there's an academic side of computer science that I did learn from school, but it's more the mathematical side. But yeah, no, the practice of it, the craftsmanship is something I've always done.
So how about on the design side? Because one of the things, like I've known you for a few years now, one of the things I've always really respected about what you've built is really clean, beautiful, elegant tools. Like clearly, you know, that also plays a big part in your DNA. Like where did that come from?
Well, I think I learned programming in a lot of ways to make interfaces. And I was making interfaces for these chat clients. I was making one for myself, you know, because I just wanted things to be different. And I don't know. I think it's just something in the way I am, the way I want things around me, where I just want these nicer experiences, and I ended up building them for myself and then giving them to other people. And then the human side of it's very interesting because, again, kind of deriving from this chat room conversation stuff. I mean, you were in this room and you had this tool and it helped you interact with everyone else. I mean, by having that tool, you know, I was able to learn programming and I was able to do all these things that were otherwise not accessible to me. And so I guess I've always had an interest in building tools like that.
And did you learn Photoshop and Illustrator and other things on your own? Were you doing a lot of the design yourself?
You know, I was. I learned Photoshop on my own. I'm not great at Photoshop and I'm awful at Illustrator. Illustrator is my that's why I really fall apart there.
Yeah. Illustrator is more difficult though.
Yeah, Illustrator, that's where my line is. It's like where the skills drop off.
Can you create vector things?
No.
Like you can't drag around anchors?
No, it's bad. It's bad.
I know the basics of like grouping objects together and that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, it's not, my knowledge ends there. I mean, I got started again with the chat client stuff and programming, doing C and C++ and learning stuff about the network and yeah, I mean, and using TCL of all things to program these chat clients. And I guess after that, I did get into the web, and I What was my first website? You know, I've never, you know, weird thing, I've never owned like shared hosting. I've always had the computer.
Your own dedicated server?
Well, not dedicated. It's like I've always had a computer like in my house or something that's
Right.
like the Linux computer,
Right.
you know, and runs the web server stuff. And like I find a way to get it on my cable modem back when that was like possible to like, open the port or whatnot. Yeah, and so I've never had shared hosting.
So where did you go? What was your first like going from working out of your house and doing these little clients to actually like your first real job as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I got started programming when I was 15, probably like 14, 15, maybe a little before that. I actually had, I had Visual Basic.
I was a Visual Basic guy.
Remember the huge box?
Yeah, of course. That's when they used to ship
box.
big, huge manuals with them back in the day.
Big box,
Yeah.
right? It's like the irony of it. Like, I mean, it's a digital thing. You have these huge boxes and these manuals. It's ridiculous. I got started with like actually Visual Basic and C++ Builder, actually, where you could draw the interfaces in Windows, which was cool.
I did that as well.
Yeah, and then got into more low-level stuff with like the Win32 API and things like that, and actually like really tried to make my own interface components. I remember trying to do that. Then C++, and TCL for the chat clients and whatnot. And my first job was actually an internship while I was in high school. I was 17 or so at the time. There was a local tech company called HyperOffice where I went, and that was really how I got started, like learning anything about the web. I was using like Cold Fusion and JavaScript and stuff like. I was actually using JavaScript.
And where was this based out?
This was in Baltimore.
Okay.
And one of the guys who, this is completely weird, one of the guys who started it was Shervin Pishavar, of all people. And so he hired me there. I think he was trying to hire my dad, actually. My dad was like, my kid programs. And it's like...
That's funny.
Yeah, and so he ended up meeting me.
I had no
giving me
idea
a shot.
Shervin was back. I know he was back east at some point, but I didn't know he was...
I just one of his first
What was
things.
he doing there?
He started it.
Oh, it was his company.
It was his company.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Him and a guy named Drew Morris. And yeah, they started it, and it was this small team out of Baltimore. And
How
I would like...
old is Shervin?
This must have been...
Is he like...
I don't want to date him. I don't know if it's dating me
like
too.
30, early 30.
No,
oh,
there's
that's
no
right.
way.
He just had his birthday. I know how old he is. That's right. He's 40.
No, but think,
He's 40.
okay, well, if I was in high school, at least 15. I mean...
No, he's 40. He just turned 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is like 15 years ago for me.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah. So
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
So you've known him for a long time.
We go back a surprisingly long way. So, you know, worked there for a couple of years, 2 years, while I was into like a freshman and sophomore in college, and you know, just kind of learned. The company ended. It was during the bubble, right? It was during this like 1999, 2000 time, and it was a weird time for tech companies. And I think, you know, I learned a lot then. You know, just anecdotally about raising money and what the culture looks like inside and stuff like that. That ended up really helping me both keep certain things and avoid certain things when starting Squarespace. And so I started Squarespace. So after that, I was just, you know, in college for a year or two working on other projects, and I started Squarespace in my later years of college. I was either either a late junior or a senior, and you know, it wasn't started as a business. It was started as me making something for myself. It was started as like, hey, I want to put a website online. Why are all the products for these separate services? Why?
What do you mean by separate services?
Yeah, so blogging was new at the time. This is 2004. I actually remember.
There was Blogger was out.
Blogger was out.
Typepad.
Yep. They were
Movable
just
type.
out. WordPress was like just starting.
WordPress was just starting.
It was coming from, I think it was like a K2 or something like that was before it. It was like a 4. Yeah, anyway. No, I mean, I remember having presentations about Squarespace where blogging was like, I had to explain the word. You know, and people were like, I don't know. Then people would equate it, if they were familiar with it, to like a live journal-like thing. They didn't take the format seriously at all.
But why didn't you, because at the time you could go get a movable type. You could customize it. You could do all
Right,
this.
sure. Sure.
I'm curious, because a lot of entrepreneurs are watching the show.
Yeah.
What was that like? The genesis, like the little seed that you were like, I just can't deal with these tools that are out there today. I got to go do my own thing. Like, what did you see?
Yeah, but isn't that's just built into like me being a picky, like ridiculous
Maybe that's
person.
it. You were
right?
just
I
too
was
picky
really
about-
picky and get annoyed with all kinds of things. And as somebody who likes making interfaces and has no problem making things for themselves, I was like, I don't want to deal with all this. I don't want to deal with separate blogging software and separate image gallery software, of which there pretty much was none. Separate page building software like Front Page or Dreamweaver was like the stuff you would use at the time for something WYSIWYG. Separate hosting software, separate analytics software, and all the interfaces are completely different, and like there's no design sense at all, and it's just a total mess. It was that and an insight around the fact that I wanted my website to look good. Like it mattered to me what my presentation was going to be, because I sort of understood it to be, how the world was going to see me. And so it was really those two things, wanting to merge the software together and also wanting to have a good web presence for myself. That was it's where Squarespace comes from. And again, not a business. Trying to make one website.
So
right?
the domain
And somebody came into my dorm room and was like, I'll give you, like looking at it, and it's like, I'll give you $300 for that. And I'm like, it's not worth $300. I have a problem even installing it for you, and it's like buggy, and I'm giving you a good demo. But wow, I mean, this is a problem people have. Like they really have this problem. And so I set out to make, a multi-user service on it. But always, kind of making it for myself at the beginning, and launched it in January of 2004 at this point, which is over 10 years ago. And I think the thing that's interesting to think about with that is that it's okay to scale ambition, right? It didn't start with this change the world of publishing. Like that wasn't the initial idea.
Right.
The initial idea is all this crap's bad. I want to make this for myself. There's something really big to do here. And then it very quickly became something bigger. And by just scaling it up and going, okay, can we make one website? Can we make 5? Can I make 1,000? Can I make different kinds? Can I make really beautiful ones and really functional ones? Can I make commerce? Like it just scales up from there. And we're lucky enough now to be able to pursue bigger vision ideas and actually make a dent in them. But that took a long time to put in place.
So what was that moment where you realized this isn't just going to be a hobby? Like, I really want to pursue this, because that's a big leap for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's like, I meet a lot of founders that have these great little lifestyle businesses that they're paying the bills, and they've got maybe one other person helping them, maybe 2. Yeah. It's like, what happened there? Was there a moment where all of a sudden things really started to pick up and people started to adopt your software? Or was it just a slow, gradual?
First year was a slow, gradual.
How many accounts after the first year? I mean, not the exact number, but like.
No. I'd be happy giving you the exact number. I just don't remember exactly. I think I was making recurring run rate at the end of the first year, something like $70,000 a year, like run rate. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I mean.
Did that pay the bills?
What bills? I'm in college, right? So here's a trick. So my parents, of course, giving me that whole like, where are you gonna get a job? Google talking to you. You should get a job at Google. Isn't that exciting? I actually flew out here and met with Google and stuff like that. At the end of the first year, I remember being like, if I can get this to the point where it's like double what my parents would think that I would be getting from Google, they'll shut up.
Right.
And also. But keeping expenses low, I mean, I stayed on a 5th year at college because I had like a couple more credits, and I took like one class for this whole extra year.
Was that to appease your parents and to be like, I'm still in college?
It's to buy time. Yeah, I'm in college, and they're like, okay, he's in college and he can't get a job.
That's funny.
And it's like I'm in this little gap, right, where I get to.
Where were you buying hosting though? Were you running your own boxes?
The servers were on my dorm room floor.
No way.
And until they were there for a couple months. And then I got hosting at, I always knew I wanted to move to New York, and I got a little 4U cabinet at Pier 1 in New York because, this is ridiculous. Why am I there? Because I read Joel Spolsky's Joel on Software blog, and they gave him a free like server there at Pier 1. And that is why Squarespace is like one of the biggest customers in Pier 1 right now in New York.
That's crazy.
Because of like that sponsorship back then, I saw it, knew I wanted to move to New York, put the thing in the rack,
So
and
did you
it
buy
grew
some
from there.
servers at that point? Were you like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go on Dell or Sun or something?
Right.
Or
Right. So the annoying thing about launching it, right, is I could write all the code myself, take a shot at the marketing stuff,
Right.
make the site, do everything myself, right? Except buy the service. So I had to battle with my parents to borrow some money for the service. I borrowed 30 grand from my dad, and the big fight was, why do you need two? Because I needed a redundant one. He's like, well, why don't you just try it with one for a while? I'm like, it doesn't really work that way. I need to have it redundant from the beginning. Like it's like I can't risk that.
Right.
Like, that doesn't make sense.
right.
And end up winning that fight, and he invested the 30 grand, and that was used for some initial Dell servers and the hosting, and
You didn't have to buy.
initial
They gave
AdWords.
you the router themselves from the provider. They just give you a direct link.
Oh, the router, it was a Linksys router from
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was running off a Linksys router for
That's crazy.
2 years.
How could that even handle the traffic?
What traffic? It's the first year. It's
Okay,
like
so you
nothing.
only had like 100 sites or less.
I mean,
or-
it had. Look, it actually takes a while to fully saturate a Linksys router.
Well, those were 10 megabit routers back in the day.
100.
Was it 100? Okay.
I mean, to fully saturate it,
No,
it's like
fair
a
enough.
couple hits.
I just
of
think those
sec-
things would
you
like
know.
overheat or something, because you're
It
talking about the
didn't.
crappy little routers.
Oh, I'm talking
right?
about like I walk in the Best Buy and get a router.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was running off that.
That's crazy.
It's a 4U cabinet with a Linksys router shoved in the back, and an expensive little APC power strip so I could remotely cycle the power, right? Because I was in Maryland. And there were a couple times when I had to, when something really went wrong, and I had to drive to New York to fix something or to install RAM or
Right.
something like really, really bad. There were a couple really scary moments there. Yeah.
Did you hire anyone at this point, or was it just you?
No. It was just me for years. So it was just me for probably 2.5 years. And then I started hiring people part-time, a template designer, and some people in customer care. One person didn't work out, one person did. The person who did, Krista, is actually still with the company and runs our customer care group
Awesome.
of 140 people.
You have 140 customer care people right now?
We're 280 people, so we have 140 in customer care.
Wow.
We answer 25,000 tickets a week.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
That's insane.
With like great SLA, great response times, great satisfaction. We track it all. It's really important. Anyway, started bringing some people on. I reached a point trying to do all this myself, where I was really, really like at the end of my rope, stressed out, and I don't think I really realized how stressed out I was. I wasn't able to admit it to myself internally, and I was having like panic attacks. Like I went to the hospital, I had a panic attack, serious panic attacks.
I went to the hospital when I was a dig my
Yep.
third year because I had heart palpitations.
Same thing.
That I could feel like the
And your
skip
throat's
beat,
closing up,
and it was like it's horrible.
Yeah,
it's like
it's horrible.
Entrepreneurs go through some crazy shit.
Yeah, but like you don't know why it's happening to you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just like, I don't understand why it's happening.
Right.
And like if an external observer were to look at you and it's like, wait, so you're tethered to your phone, these servers crash randomly,
Right.
and you have to wake up at all hours of the night. You have to
Right.
defend against, denial of service attacks, which happened against, back then. I have no capacity to do that.
Right.
You have to do your taxes. The customer support inquiries never stop. You're trying to, launch new features, and you're alone. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's not the best way forward. And
Did you raise money at any point? I mean, I know
Not
you did. So you were still all bootstrapped.
All cash flow
You were
break-even.
profitable. Yeah, you were break even.
Cash flow break even,
Okay.
right? I mean, could have been profitable, but wanted
Sure.
to invest it all,
Sure.
right? So, so ran it 3 years basically alone. Cash flow break even the whole time. Very disciplined about that. Very disciplined about being cost effective with the servers and the infrastructure, with the with the marketing spend even. I mean, the marketing spend was Google AdWords, but I ran analysis and made sure that
They were profitable for you.
Yeah, I had some way of getting the money back, right? Like just
Talk
in
to me
terms of
about
like
how you
cash
did
on
that.
cash return. Yeah, sure. I mean,
You went out and
really
bought keywords randomly, or just like thought
not
these
randomly.
might work?
No, I mean, actually, the initial keywords for Squarespace, one of the initial insights was, I actually didn't advertise it as a website building product. I advertised it as a blogging platform, because for people who are DIY, like do-it-yourselfers in the market, blog meant I can do this myself, and this is easy. And so we would attract them on blogging keywords and starting a blog, so these forward-thinking individuals, and really sell them a suite of tools that let them make a whole website, right? So that was a differentiator.
With other blogging platforms?
Yeah,
or
Typepad,
was buying
WordPress,
AdWords,
Blogger,
yeah. Okay.
right? There's always been, so we have always been a paid product. Not technically true. The first year we actually had free accounts, and very quickly cut that off because it was just like, this isn't a funnel for us. Like, this doesn't make sense. Yeah, there have always been free platforms out there. We were always very quickly turned into a pay-only platforms for people who are more professional and wanted to own their content, right? That was big. It's like, this is your home online. We're not going to put any ads on it. We're not touching it. It's your space. You own everything in it. So that's how Squarespace operates. It's a very straightforward business model. Yeah, and it sort of grew out of that. But you asked about the marketing spend tracking. I think I would manually manipulate the bids on Google. I'd change AdWord copy. I'd see what's happening, and then I'd run queries on our database and figure out where our paying customers came from, keyword-wise,
and track it all through the funnel and figure out what.
Yeah, just try and match it out. And what ends up happening is, I think very few keywords ended up being a very big deal, and so I spent all my time on those, and less time on the other stuff.
And did you track churn out the back end at that point, or like which keywords were churning higher than others?
Just unsophisticated. I didn't. I think because I was such a small operation, it was almost like I would pay attention to why people are leaving if they would tell me, but that I don't have time to what am I gonna do? You left. My best shot at making you not leave is to have a way better product with less frustration, so that I'm not looking at churn and acting,
right.
on it on the tail end after you're already gone. I'm trying to make sure you're not churning, right, by just focusing on the experience. Yeah.
Cool. So when did you, obviously, for people that don't know, you ended up at one point sponsoring for quite a long time some of the Revision 3 stuff and Dignation and some of the other stuff I was doing years ago. When did you find out about those shows, and what made you get into sponsoring video podcasts?
That was one of a couple different stabs at advertising a long time ago. And actually, the first big ad we did in podcasts was with Leo Laporte. It was This Week in Tech. And it was one of those things that was such a leap for the company. It was like we're just so used to spending on this completely attributable stuff in Google AdWords, and then it's like, okay, how much is this podcast? To sponsor it one time, it's like 20 grand or 15, something big.
Yeah.
Something really big, where it's like, you could add up our other marketing expenses and it doesn't equal that. And we did it, and it ended up, immediately changing the business. And I think this was after Squarespace 5 came out. We started to, we always do this, it's always like the advertising doesn't work, and then you do a big change to the product, and then you restart certain ads, and then it's like, wow, it's a great combination. And we did that recently with Squarespace 6. But that was a big thing for us, and to have a relationship with the show hosts, and and to support that medium was great. So that started probably 5 years ago.
And that was the first time, honestly, the first time I'd actually heard of you guys.
Yeah.
I'm curious to get into that a little bit, because you were based out of New York.
Yeah.
And there's obviously this echo chamber and a bunch of stuff that happens in the Bay Area where you just I feel like it's easier to get. There's more tech reporters out here.
Yeah.
There's more of that. It's just easier to get caught up in the buzz in the Bay Area. It's a challenge to become a household name when you're out in New York. Not so much anymore, but I think back then it probably was. Talking about,
it still is.
Yeah,
I don't think it's easy to become a household name in any of these cities. I think a brand is about consistency in the sum of its actions. Look at a brand, like if you were in Japan and you went to a McDonald's, you'd roughly know the level of consistency you'd
Right.
get, right? And that's because they have patterns and they keep everything looking the same way and operating the same way, and it's a machine. And yeah, a big international brand, I'm sure they're going to spin it for various markets.
There's more fish sandwiches. on the
There's
market.
there's more fish
I
sandwiches.
actually, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I did that. I walked into Japan. And
Really?
There's like the majority of stuff up there was fish sandwiches up
That's
there.
crazy.
which was
All right,
pretty
so
funny. But the fries were exactly the same.
Same fries.
Yeah.
See? It's same fries. And it's that consistency.
Yeah.
Right? So I think one of the biggest challenges when you're a small company or a big company is to get all the details right and to be completely consistent and get that message out there in a consistent way too, where your advertising reflects your values.
But how do you compete against the echo chamber of startups that are happening out here? Like, obviously WordPress took off, grew to become this very large company, a few others.
WordPress grew because it was, it was good and it was one of the best free things out there. There's always going to be this like special spot in the industry's mind for whatever the best free solution to anything is, be it a database, be it a caching layer, be it a publishing system, whatever.
I guess that's what Tumblr. I mean, Tumblr's New York based. That's
Tumblr's
kind of
New York based,
That's
yep.
how they got that quick like mind share was very much around the free. Oh, take 20 seconds and you'll have a site.
Tumblr did a great job of, in a world where all blogging is long form, right? Saying, let's make this easy to post. Just put a picture up. Just put some text up. This doesn't have to be this like time to write an essay, right? Which
I
is
love
what. Yeah, it's
There's
great.
a lot of people out there that are very intimidated by that white sheet of paper,
That's
that
right.
open-ended,
Yeah,
like
that open-ended, just you had ideas somewhere, get them together.
this is why I don't have a blog.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I've had blogs with you several times now,
yeah.
and then shut them, and then like call you up like a year later and be like, "Can I get on the free blog?
Yeah,
Can you hook me up?"
yeah.
It's just like-
It's maintaining a blog of long-form content is a workout program.
Yeah.
It's like you sign up for this thing, and your last dated entry starts to get old as soon as you post it, and you've got to do something else.
There's
You've got to
anxiety
keep
around
on
that.
the cycle, right?
Yeah.
And so now you're seeing, and we've talked about this before. You're seeing new services pop up, which are interesting hybrids of removing that stress and still supporting long-form content. Look at Medium, right? Where you don't need a blog. You can put these things in these collections into the ether, and maybe I just had one essay I wanted to write, and that's okay.
Yep.
And there it goes. But yeah, you talk about the white page. Yeah, we do a lot of work. Well, we do a lot of thinking, and soon to be a lot of work around solving this thing internally that we use to kind of frame what the company works on. I talked about the scaling of ambition earlier. We have this notion that we call the ideation narrative, which is just this little name for an idea growing up over time, right? And it starts with you thinking something. Maybe you say something that sparks an idea, and we have a little note app where you can write those ideas down. And then those ideas grow up, right? You put them together. You take the ideas, you put them together. Maybe you're making an essay. Maybe you're making a piece of art. Maybe you're just buying a domain because the ideas are partially formed. You want a splash page there, and you're going to put it up later. And then once you've got those ideas together, if you're putting them out there to the world, that happens on a website a lot of the time. And then there's all these things that happen after the idea is created. How many do people care about my idea? What are my analytics? These people want to buy something from me because they love my ideas. It's commerce, right? And so Squarespace operates in that spectrum, that little idea growing up spectrum. And that marries very nicely with being a creative tools company, which is really, really what we are. But we're putting a lot of effort into thinking about, well, how do we make publishing easier for people? Not just from a, like, I have a picture, I want to put it online perspective, but, I have an idea. How do I form that thought, and how do I get that into the website? And then once it's there, where does it go?
So do you want to control the entire life cycle of that? I mean, have you got the note-taking app,
Yeah.
which is at the very seed of an idea?
That's right.
You're sitting there having coffee,
Yep.
you got something, you jot it down.
Yeah, you think about something. I mean,
Yeah.
I almost did it earlier. You mentioned that coffee machine, and I reached for my phone, which is over there, and I'm like, I was reaching for the Note app, right, to write down the idea, because I
Right.
just wanted to reference it later. And then Note app connects to my email, which is just a, that's like my inbox queue. It's both to-do items and everything else. But yeah.
So what is that chain, how does that chain, that whole entire, from taking the initial note to publishing it, how does that mature over time, and what does that look like? Because I think there's a lot of companies in this space that have also tried this, like Evernote, for example.
Yep.
Bunch of different little apps around capturing food, capturing quick thoughts. Like, why do you want to control that entire chain? Why not just say, like, you know what, we're going to be the best damn publishing tool in the world?
Well, we are, and we're very focused.
No, I know you are.
And
but why even go after the rest of it?
Well, see, I stopped myself, right? I said we were doing a lot of work. I said we were doing a lot of thinking about it. We're not doing a lot of work about it right now. We have a lot more to do in publishing and the adjacent ecosystem around publishing, later in the chain, which is around commerce and statistics and getting your email set up and all that. I mean, the 90% of the company's focus is on those things.
This is your skunk works, like we're kind of
it's a perpetually an idea. I just, honestly, I just want it. I just want it, and I feel like it's not solved right. And it really does fit into this ecosystem around Squarespace. It's a little looser than those other things, which are just really obvious next steps, but it's something we're excited about, at least as a thought experiment. I think the danger is this, and it's why you see so many to-do list apps and productivity tools and
it's a crowded space.
But everyone has their own weird little workflow for like project management and their own weird little workflow for thinking.
Yeah.
And so you get into a tough spot with these things where it's like, how do I sell people on my way of thinking? You see it even in email, right?
Right.
With archiving emails versus tagging them, or there's really not a lot of consensus.
This is the reason why no one has created the ultimate app in the space.
Yeah.
Because
your brains are different. Your brains are different.
Yeah, exactly.
And
a lot of them will get, like, for me personally, we'll get 75% of the way there, and I'm like, oh, I hate how they did this, and this.
Yeah, I can't do it. And you give it up.
Right. So why even try to build those tools if you know you're not going to be able to, like, get it right for everyone?
Maybe it's why we won't. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'd certainly try and get it right for ourselves and see if we can approach the interface and the design in a way that other people haven't, and maybe we just get a part of it right. I don't know.
That said, you showed me, I don't know if we can bleep out the name or whatever later, but like...
No, we can talk about it. Yeah.
Years ago.
The Anchor Project.
The Anchor Project. He built this amazing, I wanted it so bad. I bugged you about it for a while.
People loved that.
So tell us about Anchor.
There were a lot of ideas in that. I actually have anchor.com.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's crazy. Which is a great domain. It's not for sale. And so what was Anchor? Anchor was me looking at Squarespace as a 7 or 8 person team at the time and being like, I hate this. I don't know what people are doing. I don't know how our projects are managed. I don't know, if something's been on a queue for a long, it is pre-Google Docs and everything, right?
Right.
And, I wanted to solve some internal team communication things. So Anchor was this combination of like a what am I working on status right now. It was very forward thinking.
Is it still running, by the way?
No.
Do you have any screenshots of it?
I have screenshots.
Can I put one in the show?
I can find a screenshot.
If you can send me a screenshot, that'd be awesome. Because it was the most beautiful, elegant, simple interface.
But here's the thing. So Anchor was clearly, this joke was made to me later, and I love the irony. It's like, it was this great thing. Everyone reacted the way you reacted, and I reacted to it like that too, and there were some great things in it. It was a completely JavaScript-based app years and years and years ago, real-time updating. It's like, web pages didn't look like that.
Right.
They didn't look like that, and they didn't work like that.
Yeah, for the audience.
And it was like...
Imagine you've never seen Google Docs, you've never seen real-time collaboration, you've never seen any of this stuff, and I walked in your office and you're like, hey, I got this little thing I'm kind of working on. What do you think? And now you showed it to me, I'm like, you need to launch this.
Yeah, it's like chat with Google. It's like all these things in some rudimentary form, all in one app.
Cluttered way.
Yeah, it was very pretty.
Yeah. Damn it.
Anyway, ridiculous.
Still pissed about that. But that's an example of something where you went and you said, I'm going to build a prototype of this. Yeah. You ended up not launching it. Do you find yourself doing that a lot as an entrepreneur?
So here's the good and the bad thing about this. So I was sitting there being like, I'm going to solve my own problems. Hey, my team's not communicating right. Blah blah blah. I want to know what's going on. I'm going to solve it. And so started doing that. Anchor's completely defocused, by the way, from like the mission of Squarespace. Okay, yeah, I'm solving team collaboration, but we're a site publishing platform.
Was the team confused by the fact that you were building that?
Yeah, but one of the things I was trying to do at the time is give some people in the team some space to kind of like work on Squarespace without me being this guy who wrote all the code and always and always on top of everything. And I wanted the team to kind of.
You didn't want to micromanage. You want to give them a little.
Yeah,
bit
I wanted them to run
rope.
with it a little more,
Yeah.
which by the way didn't work. And I realized that.
Why didn't that work? Talk to me about that a little bit. I want to get into a little bit of your management style. I'm curious.
Yeah, wow. There's a bigger. We get into. I mean,
don't have to talk about specifics
the
about
reason why
people, but
that
like,
specifically didn't work with Anchor is different than the bigger things about the way that would work. I mean, I didn't have at the time proper leadership where I could have just stepped away, from certain aspects of certain aspects of doing things, and I think you can't wish trust into existence. You have to see something working really well because you're working together. Like, trust is built through shared experiences. Trust is not like, I want something done a certain way, someone else wants it to do it a completely other way. Anthony, you should leave the room so they can do that thing.
Right.
That's not like healthy. That's weird.
Yeah.
That's really strange. And so I think I wasn't surrounded by the right things, the right elements, which is completely in contrast to how Squarespace operates today, where I go into meetings and people present product ideas they're working on, and I'm like, I have little to say. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just great. And
so,
it's like I just think about how aligned and how everyone holds certain values on the team right now, and like it's one of the biggest pleasures about working at Squarespace. It's just a fantastic team.
So how do you interview for that? Because like I've been in a similar situation where you're trying to find someone that. At least for me, when I was looking for a fellow product person / designer / interface person, you're looking for someone that has your general overlapping aesthetic, but will push the boundaries in weird ways that you're not comfortable with, but not too drastically where you go away for 3 days because you're on a little mini vacation.
And you come back and you're like, what the hell happened?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'll say a couple things. And Squarespace is bigger now. It's 280 people. So it depends what you're hiring for. Are you hiring an executive or are you hiring, for a specific role? And so this stuff will change. But I think there's a couple general things you always want to have. You want to have alignment, right? Just natural alignment. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, show me your portfolio. Oh, wow, all that stuff is like how I would have done that stuff. Great. Guess what you're not going to have? A bunch of arguments. Because like somebody like doesn't care about certain aesthetics or doesn't care about that. Like you want to just have it naturally, like our trains are moving in the same direction, right? You want to have connection so that when you're talking and exchanging ideas, it's almost like what the other person means even before they complete the sentences. Like you've got that great form of connection, and it's not like, whoa, like every time I talk, you seem to misunderstand me. Like you just want that verbal connection. And then the last thing you want, and this comes from experience and talent, is you need the person to have good judgment, so that if you go away for 3 days and come back, you're not like, how were you making decisions?
Right.
Like I don't understand how you looked at the things in front of you and came up with that. Like. And
you've been in that situation before. Did you just let those people go? I mean, are you? One of the things I had Jack Dorsey on the show, and he first thing he said to me, most important thing for him is he called it editing the team. Like, do you find yourself do you take your time to hire and make sure you get the right person, or do you hire fast and then edit the team, or is it a combination of both?
I still screw this up. I screw this up even today, and I can get into why I think I screw it up, but but basically. I think that the difference between me now and me 5 years ago is that when I know there's a really big mistake, it doesn't take 7 months from the mistake being here to the mistake being something I'm saying to you,
interesting.
right? Like that is way shorter.
Yeah.
I'm still making mistakes, right? Because you're always operating with partial knowledge and all that. But at least, and I'm not advocating acting impulsively. It's not like, I've got feelings and I always act on them. It's not that. But when I know something's wrong and I get a lot of data points on it, I at least start the conversation faster, because every time I've waited too long, I've wished it was shorter. It's like saying like, I know I need to go to the gym versus like, yeah, I actually went.
Right.
Right. There's just a world of difference there. So I think one of the things that you talk about editing the team, I think one of the things that I've learned, and sort of like a learned helplessness after being like, the person who's actually involved in all the code and restarts the servers and doing all that, to now where it's like, one of the few things I can control is who's in the room. Mm-hmm. Like I can't write the code anymore. I can't reboot the servers. I can't make someone responsible. I can't do all these things. I try and be very low level and get involved too, and also be very high level, but I really am only controlling who's in the room.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
A couple other things before we wrap up I want to get into.
Yeah.
And this one I'm going to give you a little bit of a hard time on because I'm curious. And
Nice.
you might just say like, hey, I don't what you want to get into this world. But one of the things I've always found a little lacking on your product is the discovery side.
Yeah.
Meaning like, finding and creating a social fabric of your users somehow tied together in some way.
Yeah.
Tumblr was really good at that.
Yeah.
Creating followers, creating this liking system. Like, why have you never layered any of that in to any great degree?
One reason is that it's happening better elsewhere, right? I mean, so look, Tumblr and Facebook and the Flickrs and all these other Twitter and all these things, the accounts are free. You have no barrier to putting your ideas there. Squarespace is, starting at $8 a month. So the set of people, at least right now, that are using it are much smaller.
Can we talk about how many users you have?
No, it's hundreds of thousands. It's fantastic. It's growing really well these days after all the after the Squarespace 6 relaunch and all that, and the recent ad campaigns and things. But I just felt like let discovery happen on all these networks where being there is free, and once you've got followers and all that, drive back to your website because that's the space you own, right? That's the one that's going to exist throughout time. I mean, you know this better than anyone. Look at social networks 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 years now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. They're changing.
Yeah.
But the website you own and you control, and it's always going to be good to have your own like little island out there. The island should be connected, but it's important you own that stuff. So I just felt like the discovery could happen better elsewhere. We actually do have a great idea for binding people together on the web, but it's something we haven't started on.
I'm curious though, like if that isn't the next big play for social networks, is like creating more of that island in some way. Like Medium, for example, they're kind of saying we can be the content publishing platform, but also some of the connective tissue as well to kind of bring users and like-minded ideas together.
Yeah, sure, but it's just text content, and you don't. Do you own it? I don't even know.
What's that?
If you publish on Medium, do you own the content?
Yeah, you do. You can download the.
Can you put an ad on it?
No, you can't put an ad on it. Yeah.
Do you really own it?
Yeah.
So it's like, so. Yeah, I mean, this fabric will be created, but look, I mean, by not having that social component, we're in a unique situation to say, actually, we want you to have all the other social components. We don't have any like, we have our own followers,
right.
So we actually don't want to give you access to these followers or this or that. There's no like weird perverse incentives where we might need to like control your page views or ad views or something like that later. It's very straightforward. It has advantages.
Cool. So let's talk about the future then. Like, what's? I mean, I know this is really hard because, at least for me, I can only think like 6 months out at a time. But like, where do you see? Do you feel like anything beyond 6 months is just BS?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Same way.
And I feel like if you've really got this plan for the next 2 years, it better sound pretty vague.
Yeah.
Because you were going to want to switch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise it's pretty scary. We have good. Squarespace right now is a good mix of having near-term and long-term goals. And long-term, I mean like 6 to 9 months. We're looking at a couple things. We go back to that ideation narrative and try and flesh out the things in there. So, websites obviously critical. What are the future of websites going to be? Can we make that? Can we make the experiences that are going to look great years from now today, right? And that's very important to us. And we have.
What's still lacking? What's missing in your mind?
We have one thing that's really exciting that we'll talk about next time we're on a show. But I think the best way to put it, that's vague, is you got to look at Squarespace as a thing that helps people express their ideas. And websites are a presentation, right? I mean, when you look at our templates, people used to think of templates as sort of like a dirty word. It's like, my site's going to look like a template. And it's like, oh, it'll look like the other sites that look like that.
Right, I hated that.
Yeah, it sucks. But we look at templates a little differently. Templates for us are a way of organizing the content on the screen. It could be image, text, image. It could be like lots of text in sidebar. It could be like images in a full screen. Like they're just information frameworks, right? And it's one of the powers of Squarespace 6 that we can actually put all those things in one platform, which is crazy. And so we're constantly looking at it and going, what are the best ways to represent these ideas? What's the best way to sell a single product? What's the best way to sell a presentation? What's the best way to sell your service business? And how can we arrange those things in a format that makes you look distinct, right? And different. And so we think about that a lot. We think about the other parts of this narrative in this spectrum, and think about, okay, you're a small business, you've got these customers. How do you become a better seller? How do you know what's happening with your traffic? How do you keep in touch with your customers? How do you set up email accounts? Like Squarespace, in a way, we're able to do advertising at the level we do. We're able to have Super Bowl ads and all that because we're solving basics for people. If you go out onto the street, well, this is cheating at San Francisco, so everyone knows what a website is. But if you go to the street in New York, everyone knows what a website is. Everyone knows what email is. Everyone knows what, like an analytics, like basic analytics for a website might look like. Like, oh, I have visitors. Can I see them? And we want to solve those basic things. Obviously, means we're in a super competitive market, but luckily we're a strong technology company and we're able to create great things.
Cool. So last question for you. What else out there in the world of tech gets you excited? Is there anything, cryptocurrencies, is there anything where you're looking at and you're like, if I wasn't doing this day to day, this is like an area of interest that I would go after and I really think is prime for disruption?
Hey, look, I think there's so much you can still do around the basics. Right? I mean, I just sat there and talked about like websites, and I'm excited about like websites, right?
Yeah.
These have been around for a bit.
Yeah.
I'm excited about email. I'm excited about, fixing domain registers, right? Just basic crap that's still not fixed.
I would love to see you tackle email. Please tell me that's the secret project that you're working on.
No, it's maybe. No, email's a big problem.
Oh, it's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
And I just think,
I mean just helping normal, when I'm talking about, right now I'm talking about just normal people, getting an email account online or something.
Right.
Just simple stuff. Big things out there that are interesting. You just mentioned. I think people are correct who look at fundamental open innovations and say, what can we do with this thing? And you mentioned cryptocurrencies, but what's really cool about that is this notion of a blockchain, right? Which is a distributed ledger now I don't know what people will come up with on that, but that's neat.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I agree.
That's like a new technology that's there that's like worth getting excited about. I don't know, if Bitcoin itself is worth getting excited about. I mean, I don't know. It's not my sort of thing. It sort of behaves like a stock to me, so it's sort of strange.
Do you own any Bitcoin at all?
I have one Bitcoin.
Just in case it goes to $100,000 a coin or something?
No, just because
you can say
to say I have one Bitcoin, and I will keep that Bitcoin forever, which I think is the problem with Bitcoin. that I'm like, I have a Bitcoin. I'm not using it as a currency. It's ridiculous. But the blockchain's really cool, and figuring out what people will do with that. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, you mentioned it when we looked at the Anchor product a long time ago. I mean, back then, CSS3, JavaScript, single-page apps were not common, and to have those technologies available in the browser, it was like, oh, shit. What can we make with this? And actually, that Anchor product, if that wasn't made and thrown away, Squarespace 6 would not exist in the form it's in. I mean, Squarespace 6 is built off all the ideas there in terms of single-page app, heavy JavaScript. Like, that was a proof of concept that things like that were possible and could be exciting. So that was exciting back then. That's exciting now. I'm not sure. I have my eyes open to things. There's nothing I'm looking at in Squarespace where it's some technology and I'm like, losing it to try and adopt it.
Yeah.
I'm sure the stuff's out there, but on the web, not sure. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to be on the show. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Pleasure as always.
I want to have you back on when when's the next big launch? Is anything?
Let's say, oh man.
When's the next version hitting?
There's a couple big things this year. Probably like September.
All right. Next time I'm in New York, we'll sit down and talk about the new
Awesome.
stuff.
Yeah, you can come by.
Cool.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks.